A specific type of individual exists who won't raise their tone when everything appears to be collapsing. They refrain from bickering, from panicking, from hurrying to assert their correctness. They simply breathe. As all others attempt to understand the mayhem, they silently observe, like someone who has previously endured this tempest. You have likely encountered such a person, the sort who feels enveloped by stillness itself. Regardless of events, they stay poised, stable, rooted, beyond disturbance. And if you have ever questioned how certain individuals can maintain composure as others crumble, the reason is much more profound than you may imagine. Serenity, true serenity, is not a void of feeling. It is what occurs when feeling converges with comprehension. It isn't that these individuals lack feelings, they do. They simply no longer respond in the identical fashion. After you have witnessed enough, after you have pained enough, after you have grasped that panic resolves nothing, you cease battling tempests beyond your command. You learn to be still in the downpour instead. This is the mindset of placid people. They did not start like this. They grew to be this way. You see, perpetually calm individuals typically endured periods where they were not. They were ruminators before, they invested too much, they attempted to manage everything, mend everything, appease everyone. Each time they attempted, they absorbed the identical insight that life refuses to yield to your desire, however forcefully you shove. Eventually, they quit trying to command the sea, and instead they learn to ride its waves. This is what serenity truly is. Not apathy, but emotional sagacity. Experts frequently label this as emotional regulation, yet that phrase fails to fully grasp its essence. It isn't merely about stifling feelings or feigning that all is well. It is about comprehending emotion so profoundly that it ceases to have dominion over you. Calm individuals are not unfeeling, they are emotionally articulate. They have mastered their mind's dialect. They can experience rage without detonation, sorrow without succumbing, and doubt without forfeiting equilibrium. For within their consciousness resides a quiet voice murmuring, "This also shall pass." This voice isn't baseless positivity, it is recollection. They have endured sufficiently to understand that the darkest times recede, that frenzy does not accelerate recovery, and that tranquility is discovered not in command, but in acknowledgement. The majority of individuals misinterpret calm people. They equate calm with frigidity, but in reality, it frequently signifies compassion. Calm individuals are those who maintain space for others while everyone else is frantic. They are the ones capable of saying, "It will be all right," and believing it, not due to a lack of concern, but due to their awareness that turmoil is not everlasting. A silent power resides in that. It is the power of moderation, of grasping that not all conflicts merit your vitality, not all slights merit a response, and not all tempests merit dread. It is the power of selecting peace, despite your impulses urging you to battle. Let us delve further. Why do certain individuals attain this condition while others perpetually feel inundated? The solution is found within a brain region known as the amygdala, the hub of fear and emotional reaction. For those who have engaged in mindfulness or endured emotionally potent events, the amygdala grows more stable. It continues to indicate peril, but it ceases to seize control of their whole system. Their prefrontal cortex, the logical, reasoning section of the brain, learns to intervene ere the feeling dominates. Put differently, placid people have conditioned their minds to halt between sensing and responding. That interval is their unique strength. This explains why, in a dispute, they can receive a painful remark and not instantly retaliate. This explains why they can exist in ambiguity without demanding to fill the quiet. This explains why, when the environment is noisy, they are still able to process their own thoughts. That halt, that instant of quietude, is where sagacity resides. Yet, this is the intriguing part. Placid individuals were frequently not instructed to be this way via texts or counseling. Numerous ones discovered it painfully, through heartache, through letdowns, through understanding that responding swiftly usually exacerbated situations. At a certain juncture, they grew weary of their internal turmoil. They grew weary of excessive reactions, remorse, apologies, justifications. They arrived at a stage where tranquility mattered more than correctness. Consequently, when pressure mounts, they select quiet over yelling. They select breathing over assigning fault. They select release over retaining resentments that scorch internally. And still, that serenity is not perpetually simple, as calm individuals occasionally bear tempests within that none can perceive. They appear tranquil, yet their composure is won through struggle. It is the type shaped in anguish, not flawlessness. They have wept in solitude, doubted their value, felt invisible, misconstrued. And amidst all that, they found that peace is not a prize for an effortless existence. It is a practice you construct when you grasp that emotional turmoil no longer benefits you. This is why people who are perpetually calm incline to think in other ways. They are not motivated by impulse. They are led by perspective. They do not pursue affirmation. They pursue significance. They have no need to demonstrate their correctness. They prefer to comprehend, because profoundly they have grasped something the majority ignores. Responding to all things renders you a captive of all things. The more serene you are, the more liberated you become. Within psychology, a concept exists called response flexibility. This is the capacity to select your reaction instead of letting it select you. That is what placid individuals perfect. They do not repress feeling, they direct it. They permit the energy to pass through them without allowing it to ruin them. This is why they frequently are the ones who appear so poised amid crisis, yet fall apart silently later. Not because they are feigning, but because they comprehend timing. They know a moment exists to feel, and a moment to act, a moment to process, and a moment to let go. Their serenity is not a facade. It's an inner guide that holds them steady regardless of the gale's intensity. And if you observe more keenly, you will spot something else. Calm individuals do not just respond differently, they perceive differently. Whereas most individuals see turmoil, they see designs. Whereas most see obstacles, they see instruction. Whereas most see conclusions, they see inceptions veiled as transformation. They have conditioned their awareness to pull back, to view the larger scene instead of being absorbed in the instant. That is what provides their equilibrium. That is why they can forfeit something and yet remark, perhaps this was intended to occur. It is not refusal. It is perspective derived from experience. The serene individual you notice sitting silently in the nook, they have likely endured things that formerly shattered them. They just discovered how to stop residing within that fracture. They have grasped that when you cease trying to manage the unmanageable, you generate space. And that area is where tranquility starts. Consider that the next occasion you observe someone who never appears flustered. They are not disconnected from life. They are simply moored more profoundly in it. They have ceased being thrown about by each wave, having become the sea itself. Their serenity is not indifference. It is comprehension. It is the comprehension that not all feelings merit articulation. Not all thoughts merit focus, and not all circumstances merit vitality, because vitality to them is sacrosanct. They expend it prudently on things that construct, not shatter. They have witnessed how readily turmoil can deplete a person, how theatrics can ruin peace, how minor responses can mature into remorse. Thus, they select differently now. When an individual offends them, they halt. When someone misinterprets them, they clarify if it holds value and depart if it does not. When existence becomes burdensome, they do not fold. They rely on faith, on time, on perspective. And that is what renders calm people appealing. It is not that they possess all the solutions, it is that they no longer require them. They have accepted ambiguity, and in a society fixated on control, that tranquility is strength. Because while most individuals are waging wars in their heads, re-examining, ruminating, repenting, calm people know that stillness can convey more than speech ever might, that not all feeling merits an observer, and that at times the utmost power is merely not responding. But an additional facet exists to this mindset, something seldom discussed. Serenity can likewise be a form of self-preservation, a defense, true, but a mild one. For numerous people, serenity is not a thing they selected. It's a thing they were forced to construct to endure. They discovered young that responding audibly failed to alter results, that remaining poised was more secure, that holding your feelings shielded kept you from being misconstrued or pained. Thus, serenity became their mail, their stillness became their defense. Yet herein lies the elegance. Though it started as protection, it transformed into strength. Because gradually that moderation shifted into consciousness, that emotional separation shifted into profundity, and that silent power became the bedrock of their tranquility. This is why placid individuals are frequently the most self-cognizant. They comprehend their triggers, they identify their habits, they do not require perpetual sound to feel vital. They discover solace in quietude. Because quietude is not a void, it is lucidity. It is the sound of a person who has at last ceased fleeing from their own self. The serene ones, they frequently make the globe feel slightly slower, a bit more secure, simply by existing within it. They do not enter a space and command focus. They do not lift their vitality to equal the clamor. Rather, they reduce the clamor by being authentic. You can nearly sense it, that silent assurance that requires no validation. A certain magnetism exists in people who remain placid in a society hooked on reaction. It isn't because they are unfeeling, it is because their feelings have ripened. And ripeness is not about years, it is about grasping what genuinely merits your tranquility. Placid individuals frequently know that debating seldom alters another's perspective, that hastening seldom accelerates anything, that fretting seldom stops anything from occurring. So they release what fails to benefit them, not due to a lack of concern, but because they ultimately grasp the price of concerning themselves with everything. The serene person has likely already endured what you are currently frantic over. They have previously confronted the anguish, the bereavement, the refusal, the dread. They have witnessed that existence proceeds even following the instance that formerly seemed intolerable, and that awareness becomes their tranquility. It isn't that they anticipate life being simple, they have merely ceased anticipating it being just. That change by itself eradicates half of existence's turmoil. When adversity strikes, most individuals descend into, "Why me?" Yet the calm person muses, "Why not me?" Not from submission, but from comprehending that life affects all, and opposing that fact merely compounds the affliction. They have unearthed a verity concealed deep in human psychology, that anguish without opposition is just feeling, but anguish with opposition becomes suffering. Thus they ceased opposing what exists. They have embraced the current of life, not as detached onlookers, but as engaged participants who discern when to act and when to pause. Because serenity is not inaction. It is command in its supreme version, the command of self. They have learned to divide the outside world from their inside one. The world may be noisy, erratic, harsh at moments, but their internal realm, that is hallowed. They do not permit each outer occurrence to govern their inner condition. This is why placid individuals frequently seem as if they exist in another dimension, because they do. It is the gap between impulse and reaction that shapes them, that minuscule, unseen halt where they determine whether to nourish turmoil or tranquility. That halt is the sign of emotional acuity. Because the reality is, serenity is not discovered. It is manufactured. Each serene person you encounter is constructing it, instant by instant. They have constructed it during lengthy nights when their thoughts refuse to cease spinning, in daybreaks when they wished to surrender, in discussions where they selected quiet over response. It is not simple, but it is deliberate. They have conditioned themselves to be steadfast, not because existence ceased challenging them, but because they ceased failing the identical emotional challenges. If you inquire of a calm person what altered them, they will likely reply, "I just became weary." Weary of ruminating, weary of justifying, weary of being misinterpreted, weary of granting vitality to all that was unworthy of it. So they began to prize peace like air. It is an odd matter. The world applauds noisy achievement but seldom respects silent strength. Still, it is the serene ones who bear the most sagacity. They are the ones who can remain in quietude long enough to truly perceive what existence is attempting to convey. They perceive more than they articulate. They see past the clamor, because quietude hones awareness. In that quietude, they watch without assessing, and that is what permits them to comprehend others so profoundly. If you consider it, placid individuals are emotional interpreters. They do not merely hear speech, they hear motive. They do not merely see conduct, they see the injury beneath it. They do not simply respond to energy, they receive, decipher, and discharge it. This is why speaking with them feels like counseling. You feel perceived, not dissected, comprehended, not condemned. Because they are not hearing so they can reply, they are hearing so they can understand. That sort of hearing demands quietude, and quietude demands power, because it is difficult to remain balanced when others are revolving. It is difficult to stay gentle when the world persistently attempts to toughen you. But calm people manage it regardless, not because it is simple, but because they know it is vital. They have grasped that peace is not the void of troubles. It is the capacity to confront troubles without forfeiting yourself, and that is what distinguishes them. Most individuals seek peace in flawless settings. Calm people manufacture peace within flawed ones. They do not await the tempest's end. They learn to discover quietude within it. You will frequently discover them with basic rituals because simplicity steadies the mind. A dawn custom, a silent stroll, a cup of tea, a brief time of quiet before rest. These small customs are not arbitrary. They are moorings. Mentally, repetition fosters a feeling of command and consistency, and placid individuals guard that habit because it keeps them rooted. They know that lacking minor measures of quietude, the consciousness begins to weave narratives, and the more serene the mind, the more lucid those narratives become. There is likewise a wonderfully contradictory aspect to them. Placid individuals incline to be among the most feeling souls, yet they are the least responsive. Because they have learned that articulation does not perpetually demand detonation. At times you articulate feeling by cradling it softly until it fades. And this does not imply they do not sense intensity, they just convey it otherwise. Their sorrow shifts into contemplation, their rage shifts into lucidity, their dread shifts into belief. That transmutation, the capacity to change feeling into consciousness, is the heart of serenity. It is what divides emotional ripeness from emotional turmoil. But here is something more profound. Serenity does not solely alter how you feel, it alters how others handle you. When you remain placid, you grow more difficult to influence. You grow erratic to those who depend on emotional responses. And that, consequently, shields your vitality, because nothing baffles turmoil more than an individual who refuses to participate. It is a silent mutiny. When all others are rushing to react, the serene person pauses. And in that pause, they acquire perspective that others overlook. They perceive intentions, designs, forces that solely manifest in quietude. They do not hurry to judgments because they have learned that reality invariably reveals itself. It does not require coercion. This is why placid individuals seldom repent their choices. They afford existence sufficient time to display what is authentic. And perhaps that is the most meaningful part. Serene people do not just handle feeling, They honor time. They comprehend that time uncovers what feeling conceals, that forbearance is not passivity, it is sagacity veiled as postponement. Thus, while others pursue swift resolution, calm people permit things to respire, because they know that hastening comprehension is the quickest path to miscomprehend. If you inquire how they remain so placid, they will grin and utter something like, "I merely ceased battling everything." But what they truly imply is, they ceased battling existence. They ceased attempting to win each dispute, manage each result, revise each history, and forecast each future. They began believing in themselves enough to allow things to develop. Belief, that is the hidden component in serenity. It is not about certainty of what will occur. It is about trusting that regardless of events, you will manage it. And that trust does not stem from ego. It stems from experience, from enduring sufficient tempests to know you will endure the next one also. This is why placid individuals frequently exude silent assurance. Not boisterous, flashy assurance, but the sort that feels like a grounding force. It is not in their speech. It is in their being. You simply feel secure near them, because their vitality communicates, "It is all right. We need not hurry. We need not battle. We can simply exist." And perhaps that is what the world requires more of. Individuals who do not contribute to the clamor. Individuals who can halt before responding, inhale before talking, and hear before assessing. Envision if all people learned to do that. Merely for one day, the globe would sound much quieter. And perhaps, just perhaps, that quietude would mend more than speech ever might. But let us be honest. Remaining placid is not simple. Even the most serene people forfeit their equilibrium occasionally. They become irate. They crumble. They experience uncertainty. But the distinction is, they know the way back to quietude. They do not remain adrift in feeling. They perceive it, comprehend it, and allow it to fade. That is the pattern. Consciousness, acknowledgement, discharge. Because true serenity is not about never being disturbed. It is about perpetually finding your path home. The serene ones know that feelings are currents, not barriers. You cannot halt their arrival, but you can select how to ride them. So they navigate the ascent and descent of life with poise, never permitting one current to characterize the whole sea. They have learned that joy and anguish are transient guests, both received, both brief. And in that acknowledgement, they discover tranquility that does not rely on future events. This is why placid people frequently seem ageless, as if they have exited the competition everyone else is running. Because in a sense, they have. They are no longer pursuing peace. They have embodied it, and perhaps you have sensed that draw as well. That silent voice within that states, "I just desire peace." Perhaps you have arrived at the stage where turmoil ceases to thrill you, where quiet feels like security, and where you would prefer to comprehend rather than debate. That is not feebleness. That is development. Because serenity is not an innate trait. It is something you mature into. And upon doing so, the world shifts its hue. You cease requiring clamor to feel vital. You begin prizing silent instants, mild individuals, unhurried days. You commence assessing success not by your quantity of accomplishments, but by the peacefulness of your existence. And the finest part? The more serene you grow, the more lucidly you perceive. Individuals, designs, meaning. You begin observing how much of existence is clamor feigning significance. And once you perceive that, it is difficult to ignore it. So you commence simplifying. You clear your mind, your environment, your connections. You select less. And in some way, it feels like abundance. Because placid individuals know that the aim is not to possess a flawless existence. It is to possess a tranquil mind. And tranquility does not arrive from mending everything external to you. It arrives from learning to be at ease within your own self, even when nothing external is logical. That is what makes placid people uncommon. Not their void of feeling, but their comprehension of it. They do not flee the tempest. They become the quietude within it. They do not command the breeze. They learn to flow with it. They do not dread ambiguity. They view it as a component of the dance, and perhaps that is the insight we all require. That serenity is not discovered at the journey's conclusion. It is discovered when you cease fleeing and resolve to be completely present, right now. Because existence will perpetually challenge you. It will rattle you, confront you, disrupt your cadence. But each time it occurs, you possess a choice, to respond or to revert. And each instance you select to revert to calm, you grow a bit more powerful, a bit more sagacious, a bit more liberated. So if you have ever been informed you are too calm, accept it as praise. It signifies you have perfected the craft of emotional equilibrium in a society that flourishes on response. It signifies you have learned to perceive the tempest without embodying it. And it signifies you have discovered the sort of power that does not yell. It merely exists, because serenity is not a void. It is completeness without clamor. It is strength without hostility. It is feeling without turmoil. And the individuals who bear that vitality, they're the ones who recall for us all that peace is yet achievable. Even here, even now.